What's up everybody, welcome to Mount Mograph. My name's Matt, and in today's video, Summit 19, we're going to be making low poly reactive water inside Cinema 4D. So once again, I didn't spend too much time on this render, I just put it together real quick, and it's kind of hard to see in this render unfortunately, but the water actually changes, the surface of it changes as we're going over it with our boat, which is a cool effect. So this seems pretty basic, but there's actually some really cool techniques inside this video that we'll check out and you'll be able to use for other projects. Because with this low poly style and our deformer, our noise shader, which I'll also cover in this video, it's harder to get the surface to react to our boat going over it. So I got this idea from some comment somebody left on one of my videos. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your username right now. But anyway, we're going to model a boat real quick and then put together this animation, which I think is actually super helpful and pretty cool. So let's go into Cinema 4D. I turned off my grid under my filter selections just because I don't really want to see it for this first part where we're going to be modeling our boat. So let's jump right into it. Let's go and select a cylinder and go and change your orientation on your cylinder to +X. Also turn your rotation segments down to, let's say 15. Go into your slice options and turn that on. And we're going to set our slice from -90 degrees to 90 to put it just like this on its side. And we are going to press C on our keyboard to make our cylinder editable. Also go and delete your font tag because we are going to be making this in the low poly style. So next go and select your point mode. And I'm going to show you a quick fix for a stupid problem. So as you can see, when I select this point, in theory it should drag out, but when I do it, it's only pulling one of the little nodes. You see how there's like a ton of them? And I can keep going until this would take forever to model like this. So basically, what we're going to do is select all the points, Command A on your keyboard, and as you can see, they're all highlighted. Right click and go to Optimize. So what that command does is basically any overlapping little nodes or points are going to be combined. So now when I click this and drag, it's going to change all of them together. So that is the first tip for the day. And basically what we're going to do is just make a very basic boat model real quick. So I'm going to drag out this front so we get a little bit of a point. And now go into my top view, F2 on your keyboard. Select your rectangle selection tool, and we are going to turn the option only select visible elements off and drag over all of these first little portions and these points, and just scale them down a little bit. Also go and select your rectangle selection tool again, and on the back side we are going to scale that down a little bit too, which was kind of to about that shape. Looks fine, like a rocket or something. Let's go into our side view. And what we're going to do is, or our perspective view, So select your cylinder and we are going to just scale this up a little bit, make it a little fatter, more like a boat. And also maybe squish it down a little bit so it looks more like a boat like I just said. So now select your cylinder one more time, go and select your polygon mode and select all the top portions of our little boat. And we are going to right click and go and select the option of dissolve. And this is just going to merge our segments of our polygons all together so they change as an entire surface instead of individually. So let's press T on our keyboard to bring up our scale properties, hold command and scale down just a little bit. Scale down one more time holding command, and now I'm just going to drag this bottom portion. I'm going to go into my side view, so F4 on your keyboard. It's actually my front view, but it's the side view of my object, if that makes sense. And just scale this up so it fits kind of inside the boat. And now, as you can see, we have created a quick little boat model. So now what we're going to do, actually, I put this in a stupid spot. There we go. So now what we're going to do is select your cylinder and go and grab a subdivision surface. If you're not in R15, it's going to be called a hyperNURBS, and it's the same object. They just switched it for R15. So holding Alt, click that, and that will put our cylinder inside of our subdivision surface. In your subdivision surface attributes, let's turn our subdivision editor down to 1. So immediately we are going to get this very funky, ripply looking object, which does not look good, but it's cool stuff for making a low poly stuff. So select your subdivision surface and press C on your keyboard to make it editable and combine it all together. And so we're going to get this very ridiculous looking and very smooth looking low poly object. Let's take this one step further by selecting your subdivision surface and go into your deformers and select a polygon reduction deformer and make this a child of your subdivision surface and basically turn up your reduction strength to a number that looks good to you. I'm going to turn mine up to 99 even, and as you can see we get a very geometric and basic looking shape that would have taken much longer to model than how we did originally. So that is another way to make some cool low poly stuff. Actually, I might turn this down a little bit, and yeah, to 98 looks a little bit better. We want to keep some of that that shape. So yeah, basically that's a cool way to make a quick model a little differently. So right click this and the subdivision surface and go and click this option current state to object. And now we can delete this. Basically you have to do this step because your deformers, if your deformers won't be applied otherwise, and we're going to be combining this object all together to affect our surface. So just delete that, and as you can see we have a subdivision surface which I'm going to call boat base. So now let's create a quick rest of the model. Select a cube and make it editable and delete your Phong tag. So just scale this down accordingly, and we are going to be creating kind of the back portion of our boat. Let's see. And it's not going to be perfect. This is basically just going to be a really quick model, but still might teach you guys something, which would be great, I think. So scale that up. This is going to be like the little walking portion or something. I will duplicate this one more time and scale it down. Yeah, there's no right way to do this. As always, I'm just this is what I'm just going to do real quick for us for today. Okay, so we have this basic looking boat. I might even duplicate this and create a little walkway or something. And scale this up to maybe the front. That looks fine. This is just like extra crap in this this little thing. So let's create a little what would you call this? Man, I'm blanking on words right now. Let's go and grab a spline tool and make a rectangle. Rotate this 90 degrees on its side and just scale it down. And this is going to be the railing for our little boat. So I'm just going to scale this, make it editable, pressing C on my keyboard, and just position this basically so it is, might have to scale this up a little bit on its sides, but basically this is going to be the little railing around our little control room or something. So with your new spline selected, actually let me combine all this stuff into a null, and I'm going to call this boat body just to keep things a little bit cleaner, and I'm going to call this spline rail. I don't know why I'm naming stuff like that. But let's go and with your spline rail selected, go into your NURB objects right here and select a sweep NURBS holding Alt on your keyboard, which will make our spline rail a child of our sweep NURBS. Go into your spline options and select an end side and scale this down a little bit and just place it inside your sweep NURBS and scale it down one more time and just to create a quick little rail. So that looks fine. Now what we're going to do is grab a cloner object, so Mograph cloner, and this is going to be called rail supports maybe. So let's now grab a primitive cylinder and scale this down a lot. Press C on your keyboard to make it editable, and we are going to put this inside of our rail support cloner. So now go into your object mode for your cloner and set the mode to object and drag your spline rail into your object, and this is going to duplicate it. So select your cylinder, press T on your keyboard to make it editable, and we'll just scale this down a little bit to something more reasonable. Might even go a little bit more and scale it up. Cool. And just go into your rail supports and drag, go into your rail supports, go into your transform properties for this and turn your Y properties down until they are connected to that first rail. So this is going to probably work fine. And I can now go into my cloner and my object and just turn my count up if I want more rails. So let's put both the cloner and the sweep NURBS into a new null object, and I'm just going to call this rail. So we'll be able to move this down very easily. So I'm just going to put it there. That looks good. Select your little top box or whatever you'd call it, and select your polygon mode, and just press T to bring up your scale properties. Holding Command, drag this down until you get a little thing like this. Hold Command and drag it out a little bit, and that's just going to create a little window for us. Maybe do this for the front, same technique. And just to add a little bit more to this, you can do whatever you want. I just want to make it look a little bit more interesting. So that looks fine, and I'll do the same on this side over here. Doesn't have to be perfect, but yeah, so just that looks so stupid, but whatever. So we're gonna have a very silly looking boat, which is fine. So let's create a little stack for this boat. Just go and select a cylinder primitive and scale this down. Drag this up to the top, scale it down again until it's more reasonable. And instead of just a ridiculous smokestack, and turn your rotation segments down to 12, and press C to make this editable and delete your Phong tag. Duplicate your cylinder, press E on your keyboard to bring up your move properties, and holding Command, drag it up. Scale this down a little bit, and just size it something like this. Whoa. And duplicate it one more time, just so we get a little bit of a stack on our boat. That looks good, and let's add one more element, and we'll get into the cool part of this animation. So what we're going to do is go and duplicate this cylinder. So just drag this one more time, rotate it 90 degrees so it's facing you. Go and grab a Mograph cloner and drop your cylinder into that, and we're going to call this Windows. And it should, but yeah, so right now it's doing that stupid linear movement. So just change your Y properties from 0 to maybe 50 on the X. Oh, not 560, 50 on the X. And we are going to just position this over here. And now we need to rotate it. So go into your cloner properties, your transform properties, and change your pitch to 90 degrees to rotate it on its side. So it's facing us once again. So just position this cloner on the side of our boat like this, and we'll have a couple little crappy windows. How fantastic is that? Actually, what I'll do is just scale this cylinder up a lot more, and then just drag my, oh, now I need to scale this down. But basically, I will put it so it's on both sides of the boat. It doesn't have to be perfect. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this portion. So we have a boat model real quick, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Let's select all of our objects and put it into a new null, and we'll call this boat. Let's do one more step, and right click and go and select children. Press C to make them all editable. Select your boat one more time, right click, select children, and whoa, what happened to my little rails over here? That was no good. Let me see what happened here. My rail supports that. Okay, that's fine. So anyway, right click, select all the children, and right click, connect objects, and delete. So there we go. You have an entire boat object just like that. Right now it has the Phong tag was reapplied to it. Let's delete that, and we will have a low poly boat that will be changing our water dynamically. So with that done, that was kind of quick. I hope, sorry if that dragged out. We have 14 minutes, and I probably talked way too much. So anyway, let's go and create this cool effect. So I'm going to just create a material real quick, and white will be fine, and just drop it on my boat just to see what it looks like. And wow, how awesome is that? Let's go into our primitives and select a plane and scale this way up. So you want it to be absolutely huge, because this is going to be the ocean for our object. So let me create PSR update, and this as well. Okay, so in your plane properties, let's delete our Fong tag right off the bat. So press delete and don't zoom out crazy like I just did by accident. In your plane attributes, let's turn our segments up to maybe 80 and 80 to get a whole bunch of this little grid on here. Okay, so now for the cool part. What we're going to want to do is have our boat be able to change the surface of our plane as it goes over it, like dynamically. So there's actually a deformer that will be helpful for this, and I'll show you how to tweak the settings to get a very cool water ripple. So let's go and select a collision deformer and place this as a child of our plane. So go into your collision deformer and go to colliders and drop your boat into the collider. So nothing's going to happen right off the bat, but I'll zoom in a little bit and show you. So basically, now as I move the boat, it kind of changes the water, and we'll have to change some settings to make this react a little better. The first one, go into your collision deformer, go into your collider options and change your solver to outside. And so this is just going to always want to keep the object on the outside of it a little bit longer. The other way, it intersects at some point. So that's kind of cool. And we still have some changes to make. As you can see, I'll do a quick preview. It actually is bending the plane a little bit. And we're going to be changing a couple more settings to make this really look good. So go into your advanced settings, and first off, we're going to want to change our size options, which is going to change like how far the path is, or like the distance that the boat would change our surface. So now it's getting pushed way down, as you can see. So we're going to want it to be a little extreme for this effect to work because we have some other steps to do. So I'm going to turn my collision deformer, the size to, I'm going to go 21. And let's also just turn our steps, keep your steps at 1. So we're going to now change the stretch of our surface. And we're going to turn this up a little bit more to, let's go 32. And basically, as you can see, it's going to affect a wider radius around our object. So now, as I drag my boat, let me select my boat. As I drag my boat, it's actually deforming the surface. I know it's floating above it. We're going to fix that in a second. And yeah, that looks kind of cool, I guess. So let's go back into our collision deformer and let's change our stiffness. So our stiffness is pretty annoying because it kind of makes our boat spring back. So as I move my boat, the surface changes, like pops back to its normal way really quick. So let's change our stiffness to like 5%, and now there should be a slower change as our boat goes over the surface. It's not too noticeable now, but it will be in just another second. So back in your collision deformer, let's change our struct, which is going to be like the mesh of our object and how it is deformed. So we're going to want it to basically deform more. So instead of keeping its structure, we're going to want to tell it to get deformed more. So I'm going to turn this down to 3 and select my boat, and let's see what that has done. So now as I drag my boat over, once again, this is a subtle effect, but it's going to be helping us in another second. Also change your flex from 100% down to maybe 5, and let's see. Okay, so these settings are going to be good for us. And now let's set your timeline to maybe 5 seconds, and we are going to set a keyframe on our boat here. So press the keyframe button and go forward to the end, and we'll just drag our boat forward to whatever, some distance across the screen. So as I play this, as you can see, our surface is being changed. So this is not how water reacts in real life. In real life, the water is like, you kind of get the jet streams behind our surface as the boat passes over it. So luckily for us, the collider has an option for that. Let's go into our object properties for our collider, or our collision, sorry, and change our restore shape to 0. So now as our boat goes over our surface, it actually leaves a trail behind it. So it's actually like drawing onto our surface, which is very nice. Actually, what I'm also going to do at this point of the video is rotate the plane 90 degrees. So what this is going to do is just make it so it's not like we're not going to have straight lines as the boat goes over our surface. So now as it goes over, we're getting this this path, or this line in our surface. But we do want it to change back a little bit. We don't want it to just draw a line in the water because that's very unrealistic. So change your restore shape to like 14%. So this should slowly go back to its normal shape. We might actually want to turn this down to maybe 2%. It's going to be just tweaking settings depending on what your stuff looks like. Yeah, so now as you can see, the ripple basically starts coming back up about this far from our boat as it passes. So I like how that looks. And now let's go and create the cool effect. So basically the problem I found was when you add a deformer, a noise deformer, to actually make the water ripple in low poly style, it's going to keep intersecting the boat and cause all kinds of problems. So we do want, and like, yeah, then would have like the water intersecting the boat, which is just going to be a problem because as our collision is happening, it's also being deformed. So what we're going to go is go into our collision settings and go into our catch properties. So enable your catch properties, and this is basically going to save whatever animation happens. And so now if you click enable and play it, I'll show you. Oh, actually, sorry. So click enable and click calculate, and this is going to calculate all the changes that happen on its surface as our boat passes over it. So now, after it's calculated, one more second. So now as it's calculated, I could go into my boat and actually delete these two keyframes. So I'll delete the two keyframes and move my boat off the surface. And now I'll play the video and the surface is being deformed still. So that's pretty cool. So now what we're going to do is go in our plane object, have that selected, and go and grab a displacer. So select that and put it the displacer and the plane in a null together. So now the displacer is in null, and I'm going to call this actually water, and the plane is also in the null. So in your displacer properties, we're going to want to go to our shading effector, our shading property, go into shader and select a noise property. Click the noise, and I'm first going to turn the global scale up a little bit to 183, and I'm going to turn my animation speed to 1. So now as I play this video, we're going to get water ripples, and the cool thing is since we have a catched motion, it is going to, the water ripples will affect our collision deformer after the fact. So the collision is going to take place no matter what, and it won't be affected by whatever noise is happening on its surface because it was a catched memory. Is that making sense? I'm sorry guys, I'm really trying on this, but it's kind of a funny thing to explain. So go into your displacer and go into your object settings, and let's turn our height up just so it affects the surface more. I'm going to even set it to 21. So now we're going to have this water rippling happening on our surface, and it looks all right. I'm actually just going to grab this white mat and put it on there. Okay. So that looks crappy. That is actually stupid. Let me just make a different color. I'll just do a blue real quick, or purple in my case. Drag this onto my plane. All right, so this looks crappy, but basically this idea is I just want to teach you guys how to do this, and this is pretty much it. So I'm going to now move my boat back to the surface. And remember how last time when we had it go over the surface, the water was pushed way far away from our boat, and it wasn't very realistic because there's like a 30 centimeter gap between our boat and the water. So now that we have this catched motion, what we're going to be able to do is position your boat as close to the surface as you want, and even have it intersect a little bit without having to worry about how it's going to affect the water. So that looks good to me, and I'm going to set a keyframe and then go forward and find where the heck this was happening. So I'm just going to drag it. I believe this is where we stopped. Cool. So I'll just scale this up. Man, this purple color is making this very hard to see, so I'm actually going to delete this again. So now our boat is going over the surface, and it actually looks like it's affecting the water. I mean, it was affecting the water, but the water is still rippling. As you can see, the boat is sitting under the surface, and if we hadn't catched our motion, the displacer would be putting the water segments into our boat and getting horrible intersections. But as you can see, it looks like the boat is driving over the surface, and yeah, I think it's cool. So you can add any materials you want to this and spend more time with it. I just wanted to show you guys this technique and introduce you to catching motion inside of After Effects, or not After Effects, whatever program this is, Cinema 4D. I think it's a nice effect, and I think it is pretty cool. So yeah, you can definitely add more textures to it. Like I said, this is kind of a crappy render, but you can see how the water reacts now, and I just didn't put good lights in the scene or anything. So that is how you make low poly reactive water inside Cinema 4D, and I hope you guys like this video. Get your learn on, guys. Peace out.